This is the first video in the AutoCAD ABCs and Introduction to the AutoCAD Interface. Start by opening the most recent version of the software from your desktop. By default, you have a screen to start off with that looks like this. In the upper left corner of your screen, you'll see a red A. This is the Applications menu in AutoCAD. If you click on the down caret to open it, you'll see a number of very common applications. Starting a new drawing, opening an existing drawing, saving your work in a couple different ways, printing from here as well, are all available through the Applications menu. And you'll see as well the icons that are common to these. You'll see these in a number of different places throughout AutoCAD. You'll also see as you start to work on different drawing files that a list of those drawings will appear here. So if later on you save a file and then realize once you closed it that you're not sure where to find it, start by coming back to the Applications menu and see if that drawing is in your list. To the right of the Applications menu are the Quick Access tools. Again, you'll see a lot of the same icons used throughout the software. You may see these in different softwares as well, things like Word and Excel. So you have a button here for starting a new file, opening an existing, the quick save, and then the save as. Save as allows you to name a drawing and also specify exactly where that file is being saved. So as you're getting used to the software, this is a great save to use. Start with this one. In drafting, printing is called plotting. So the printer icon here in AutoCAD is labeled plot. One of the things that you're noticing, I'm hoping too, is that when you hover over any of these tools, you get a description of that tool, what it's called, where to go for additional help for that. And on some of the tools you'll see, if you pause long enough, you'll get a detailed description about how to use it. A couple other tools that you'll find really useful as you start to get into drawing with AutoCAD are the undo tool and then the redo tool. The down caret at the end of the quick access tools is a way to customize the list. And one of the things that you might decide to turn on for yourself is the menu bar that's directly underneath the quick tools. You have pull down menu access to a number of tools in addition to buttons and commands. And if you like to have access to those and you don't see File, Edit, View, etc., open up that customizable access and you'll see the ones that are on are checked. You'll see Show Menu Bar as opposed to Hide Menu Bar. So when you click on that option, your pull down menus will appear. Underneath the pull-down menus are the ribbon, and each ribbon is specific to the tab. The information, the buttons, the tools that you have access to are specific to each tab. In the Home tab, for example, you'll see you have a lot of basic drawing tools. You've got some modification tools, your annotation tools, which will help you add text and dimensions to your drawings, ways to edit and control items by layer, and a number of other areas that you will probably see fully expanded in your computer. If you click on the next tab, you'll see that you've got a selection of different tools. Take a minute or two and explore all the different options that you have by clicking on the tabs. Lots of different tools and access to all kinds of different things about your drawings through these tabs. I'm going to go back to the Home tab now, and I'm going to hover over one of the modification tools. You'll see that when you hover for more than a few seconds, you get a detailed description of how to use that tool. So anything that you're curious about learning more about, take a minute, hover over something, let it expand, and AutoCAD will remind you, as always, to go to the Help menu, which is the F1 key, the Function 1 key. Okay. Underneath the ribbon are the tabs that you have for drawings that you may have open. Right now I have just one drawing open, but if you have more than one open, you'll see a tab for each drawing, and you can click on that tab to access that file. Underneath that is the drawing editor. This is the place where you're going to draw your geometry, and that geometry in AutoCAD can range from very small mechanical parts to the plans for a house, to entire city layouts in terms of roads, bridges, etc. All kinds of different ways you can use the software. Underneath that is the command line. And you want to make sure that the command line is docked. This is where we're going to enter all the information to tell AutoCAD how we want to create our geometry. So we'll start here. You may find that you have buttons that you like to go to, but all of the commands can be accessed through the command line regardless of the release of the software. So that's why we have everybody learn the software by using the command line. By default, it's floating. It might look like this in the middle of your screen. Click and hold on the dots and drag your cursor to the side. You're looking to see that expand to the full width of the screen, and then that's docked in place. Underneath the command line are 3 different tabs by default. The model space tab is what we've been exploring and includes the drawing editor. Once you've created some geometry and you're ready to prepare it to print and share with someone, you'll come over to a layout tab, which again by default looks like a piece of paper. It has a viewport or a window that will show you what you've drawn in model space. And this is the area, like I said, that we'll get ready to prepare to print when we reach that stage. Your status toggles are there are 3 that you want to make sure are on and running, so you have access to those tools. The first one that you'll see that should be on by default is the polar tracking, and you can see it's on in this version of the software. When it's on, it's blue. When it's off, it's white or a light gray. To turn a toggle on or off, left click on it with your mouse. The caret next to the polar tracking, when you click on it, you have access to the default settings for different angles. Right now you can see our 90 degree is checked. The next tool we want to make sure is on has to do with object snaps, and it's the blue square right here. I'm going to click on the down caret. There are several object snaps that you want to take advantage of. Some that are on by default, which you can see are the ones checked: endpoint, center, intersection, and extension. Midpoint is also very handy, so to turn that on, I'm going to check just to the left of the icon for midpoint. The tool that gets object snaps and polar tracking working together is the object snap tracking tool. This toggle should also be blue. It should also be on. That gets these 2 items working together. Using these tools will help you become very efficient and very accurate in drawing with AutoCAD. There's a few other toggles that you can experiment with and see what they do. For example, by default, the background grid is visible. You can see it's on because the toggle itself is on. I'm going to turn it off. I prefer personally to draw with a clean blank screen. You may like to have that on in the background, and that's fine if you want to leave that on. Coming back to the command line now, a quick demonstration about how to use the command line with the line command. When I start typing the command for line, which is line, L-I-N-E, you'll see that by default, instead of going to the command line, that command is entered in a little window that appears to the lower right of the cursor. This is the dynamic input that's on. We want to turn that off when we get started. We want information to go on to the command line. So to turn that off, I'm going to access the settings in one of the drawing toggles that I have on. If I go into Object Snap Settings, you'll see that my drafting settings each have their own dedicated tab. The Dynamic Input tab is where I'm going to be able to turn off the dynamic input, the information that is appearing next to my cursor. I'm going to do that by clicking in the boxes and removing those checks. Now when I start the line command, you'll see that when I type on the keyboard, enters directly into my command line. And as soon as I start to type the command for line, a list appears with all of the commands that AutoCAD has that start with the letter L. I can choose the command from that list if I like, and this is a useful tool if I remember how a command might start alphabetically. But ultimately, you want to develop the ability to become very efficient. Entering L, just the letter itself, and pressing enter activates that command by the alias, the abbreviation, and learning those will make you very efficient at using AutoCAD. With the line command, I can use my cursor to click on a point and then on a next point. Line is a continuous command, so when I'm finished, which I am, I just wanted to draw one segment, I'm going to press either enter or escape, and that ends the command. If I want information about this line, I have access to it through a few different places, and one of them I'm going to show you is a palette. It's called Properties. The alias for Properties is PR. And by default, Properties opens as its own window. You can see I don't have anything selected yet, but as soon as I select the line that I've drawn, the object type that I've entered, that I've selected, is here. I can see what layer it's on, some of the other characteristics of that line by layer. I also have access to very detailed information about the geometry of that line, and I can use the Properties window to make a change to it. For example, if I change the start Y coordinate to 12, you'll see that the line is repositioned and the length of it changes. I like to have access to Properties, but I don't always want it to take up a big area of my screen. So if you find that you use it often enough to want to have it readily available to you, there's a couple different settings I'll encourage you to change. First, if you go to set it to the side of your screen and you find it locks itself into place, it ends up taking a lot of your valuable drawing space. So to avoid having that happen, if you go into the Properties of the Properties window, unselect Allow Docking, and that way you can move it any place you want and it won't take up the screen. The other thing you might consider doing is having it auto hide. If I click on this tool, then my properties will only expand when I move my cursor near it. A couple other changes you may want to make to what's going on for readily available tools and settings in your drawing editor. A number of these tools, like the View Cube and this tool palette here, are mostly tools that deal with three-dimensional drawing, and we won't need to have those on. So I'm going to turn off this toggle. You have ready access to the 2D options in that toggle, things like pan if you press and hold on your wheel. You can also zoom in and out by pushing forward and pulling back. And you can see how I get closer and further away from the line when I do that. The View Cube I can turn off with the setting just underneath the Drawing tab, the Viewport Controls. The View Cube, that again deals mostly with drawing in terms of 3D, 3 dimensions, really isn't necessary for two-dimensional drawing, so I'm going to turn that off. Some other settings, the View Controls, that by default in two-dimensional drawing show top. That's correct. That's how we want to draw our two-dimensional views in AutoCAD. 2D wireframe also works perfectly well with the drawings we'll complete in this class.